This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you all. I'm going to call to order the February 4, 2021 meeting of the St. Peter Planning and Zoning Commission. It is 5:30 p.m. We are meeting in a virtual format on the GoToMeeting platform. I have established that we do have a quorum with members Noel, Davis, Urban, Fichtner joining us by video, and member DeVos joining us over his phone. So we do have a quorum. I would ask, is there a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved. This is Davis.
Motion by Davis. Is there a second?
I'll second it. Urban.
Second by Urban. At this moment, I will note that member Rosso has been able to join us. So welcome, Ken.
Thank you.
That was a motion to approve the agenda, Ken.
Excellent.
Anticipating no discussion, would there be well, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. The agenda is approved. You have the minutes of the January 7, 2021 meeting are on pages 1 through 5. Would there be any noted corrections or a motion to approve?
This is Russell. I will move the approval.
Motion by Rosso. Second?
Will second.
Second by Fichtner. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor, say aye.
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 The minutes are approved. We have no unfinished business before us this evening, so the first item of business is Kwik Trip Inc. at should be 100 Dodd Avenue. We took some title correction actions at the last meeting to get rid of an easement, a conditional use permit, and I think it was a variance, and then released them from the terms of the development agreement that was entered into between the city and Seitzer Ford. There were two other items that now they've requested. There are platted Hatch Street, that's part of the original Traverse Des Sioux, town of Traverse Des Sioux plat. And then there are the north and south alleys in the 2 blocks on either side of Hatch Street. Obviously, the Ford development circumvented and was developed over top of all of them. And again, it's a title correction action. It clears up the title if the streets and the alleys are going away. So they have petitioned, and I would ask if there are any questions, and I will start with member Noel.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Member Davis.
No questions. Thank you.
Member Urban.
None for me.
Member Fichtner.
No questions here.
Member Rosso.
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Member DeVos.
No questions. I'll just note that this actually made me do some St. Peter history and figure out what the town of Traverse Des Sioux actually was. So.
Very good. Would anyone be inclined to move the resolution?
I'll move it as it stands.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Davis will second.
Second to the motion. It's time to ask, are there any further discussion? And I think we can manage it if I just say turn your microphone on. Hearing none, I will call the roll.
Russ, I'm
Member
sorry.
Davis.
May I interrupt?
Oh,
May I interrupt
yes.
for just a moment, please?
Yes, you may.
Could you expand just a bit on the access to the site, please?
Yeah, the access to the site will be off Old Minnesota Avenue. As the site is repurposed from a Ford dealership and then a bus service garage and Anytime Fitness to a convenience store, given it's on a state highway, MnDOT has the ability then to do what they call an access review. MnDOT will no longer allow an access off of Dodd Avenue. So as they would develop the site plan, they would have to consider the grade change and present a site plan that accommodates that access off of Old Minnesota. I would expect that they would anticipate 2 accesses off of Old Minnesota. So we've not seen a final site plan, but MnDOT has commented. After we received MnDOT's comment that there would be no access allowed, staff inquired as perhaps a median could be built, and then there could be a right in, right out at least on Dodd. MnDOT Access Committee reviewed that and they denied that request as well. Kwik Trip is very well aware that there are the grade changes and some access challenges. They are certainly confident that they should be able to overcome them. I'm getting some feedback. Is it Dean?
Yeah, yep, that was me. I want to make a
Yeah.
comment on that, if I may.
Sure. I'll if you could close your mic, I'll ask. We'll recognize you in a minute. But we're getting some
Thank you.
feedback right now. So, Ken, was there further questions?
You know when the MnDOT update may be forthcoming?
Well, MnDOT, they've only commented on the Dodd, and so that has been what I am considering to be their final decision. So they are not going to be reviewing the accesses off Old Minnesota, but Dean George is joining us over the phone. He's from Kwik Trip, so I think he could perhaps address some of the access challenges.
Excellent, thank you.
Dean, go ahead.
Yeah, so we submitted what we're deeming our final site plan to MnDOT, and they took a look at it and aren't allowing any access points to what I'll call the north side of the site. So everything is coming in off Old Minnesota. So that is our final site plan. The site's going to be facing south, and everything's going to be utilizing off to the east, or to the west, excuse me. So we have civilly designed in for grade changes and retaining wall. So we're well aware of that as well.
Any further questions, Ken?
No, thank you.
Does that lead anyone else to have questions or thoughts? Mr. Urban.
Is Old Minnesota going to be able to handle that kind of traffic there as it currently stands? And will there be any plans for sidewalks to be extended down that way, since I anticipate there would be foot traffic more so now at the convenience store?
Long term, there would be plans to develop Old Minnesota as is what's called an urban section, then with the curb and the gutter, similar to Nicollet Avenue, curb and gutter, pavement between sidewalks. We've gerrymandered in a path past the Best Western up to the mobile home park. Right now, Joe, I don't believe that plan is in any particular calendar year. As that would be undertaken, as I understand it, not being an engineer, I understand it that the grade change of Old Minnesota will change, and as it would near the future Kwik Trip site, the grade of the road would be changed. At that time, again, then accesses would have to be altered to accommodate that grade change. But I don't anticipate this, perhaps, Joe, in my career. And right now, it is what they call a state aid roadway, meaning we do receive annual funds from MnDOT to maintain those classification of roads or to repair them or to rebuild them. Those dollars are expended into the future on projects that are on a firm timeline or an anticipated timeline. So does that answer your question?
Kind of. I mean, it's just, I've walked that area before, and there is, sidewalk that's come down, Dodd Road there. It meets up, but there's just nothing north-south on Old Minnesota after it ends, after the trailer park and the new old KFC. So, like I said, I just anticipate we're going to see more foot traffic eventually, and that road gets kind of narrow there. So just.
Yep. Mr. George has had the conversations with the public works and the design staff at Bolton and Menk and at our public works department. And Dean, are they incorporating a sidewalk on your property?
I haven't seen final design comments from them yet, so they have our final site plan. I don't recall if there's a sidewalk on that west side or not, but I haven't seen official comments from the building department yet.
Yeah, I would anticipate that there would be. It was like, when the hotel, we got the sidewalk up to the northern lot line of the hotel. I believe that we'd probably get a sidewalk to the southern end of the Kwik Trip property, even if it perhaps dead ended at that point.
Okay, we'll look for those comments. Generally speaking, trails aren't a problem for us to install. So.
Yep. And like I said, I'll defer to Public Works on that, Dean.
Perfect.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, we do have a motion and a second. I will have roll call vote, and I will start with Member Noel.
Aye.
Member Davis,
Aye.
Member Urban,
Aye.
Member Fickner,
Aye.
Member Rosso,
Aye.
Member DeVos.
Aye.
Very well, motion carried. Thank you, Dean. This matter is on the city council agenda, I believe, for the 22nd, where the city council will hold a public hearing on the matter, which I don't intend or expect to be very well attended. So, but we'd ask that you join us that night also, Dean.
Sounds great. I will be there. Thank you very much.
You better have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Moving on to the Brad Baker administrative lot split. I'm gonna, first of all, I talked to Ken yesterday afternoon, and I had a voice message from Scott, and Ken was the first to notice, so he's going to win the semi-fabulous door prize. In the third paragraph from the bottom on page 15, it says C5 Business Professional Office, and when Ken and I talked, I had it backwards. It is zoned C4, so it is zoned C4. A few years back, the Hallett's Pond site directly behind the Hy-Vee was rezoned C5 for the consideration of a multifamily. So this property was not rezoned at that point. So this property is C4, and then the regulations then that are included in the photocopy are correct. If this was C5, the lots wouldn't meet the minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. Minimum lot size in the I might have said that backwards. Minimum lot size in the C4 is 15,000 square feet. I think many of us were anticipating this. Actually, it was almost encouraged or suggested by the Planning Commission that an administrative lot split, cutting the lot in half, would only require that the gateway requirements be established on the western facing facade, the one directly facing 3rd Street. That's subject to the City Council adopting that ordinance amendment next Monday when they are holding a public hearing on the matter. So if the council approves that ordinance amendment, which I believe based upon discussion held at workshops that is likely to happen, Mr. Baker would only have to have that facade on the west side. So he is proposing a lot split. He's essentially taking lots 10, 11, 12, and 13 of Norman subdivision, eliminating the interior lot lines between 10 and 11 and the interior lot line between what would be 12 and 13. He would have 2 nearly identical lots. They both meet the minimum requirements as to lot size and frontage. They both can be reasonably provided with the necessary utility service that would be anticipated. They both can be effectively drained in accordance with the MS4 permit. We would not expect that the lot split would create any type of a traffic circulation that would be in excess of the design of the roadway. It is my recommendation. Oh, I should note that it's anticipated that future vehicular access to the sites would be off of 3rd Street. You may recall that a conditional use permit based on a site plan was submitted for the southern part of the lot. That development can be accommodated while maintaining the appropriate setbacks in other regulations contained in the C4 or Gateway Overlay District. If the lot split is accepted, as the northern property would be developed, that would require the enhanced facade on the north and west facade of that building, since both would be facing a public street. That is once again assuming the City Council adopts the ordinance amendment that you have recommended next Monday evening at their public hearing. At this point, I didn't ask Mr. Baker to join us, but I will open it up for discussion, and I will start with Member Davis.
As you know, we've discussed this before. I don't really have much to ask or to add at this point, but it looks like a good plan.
Thank you. Member Urban.
I think it's appropriate for everything we've discussed, and it doesn't feel like it adds any unnecessary costs for him, what we were talking about earlier. So I think it's a pretty nice compromise myself.
Thank you. Member Fickner.
Yeah, I agree. We've been talking about this, and that this is how we envisioned it, I think, earlier on. So I go for it.
Thank you. Member Rosso.
I would just speak in full support of it. It makes a whole lot of sense, and I'm excited to have the facility in town.
Thank you, Ken. Member DeVos.
I don't have any questions on it. Thank you.
Very good. Member Noel.
Nothing to add. I think this is very sensible, and I'm glad that we were able to reach this sort of agreement. We'll see what the city council does.
Thank you. Would anyone be inclined to move the resolution recommending the council accept the split as petitioned?
This is Rosso, and I will so move.
We have a motion by Rosso. Is there a second?
This is Fickner. I'll second it.
And a second by Fickner. If there's any further discussion, I'd suggest you just open your microphone. And hearing none, I will call the roll call vote, and I will begin with Member Urban.
Aye.
Member Fickner.
Aye.
Member Rosso.
Aye.
Member DeVos.
Aye.
Member Noel.
Aye.
Member Davis.
Aye.
Motion carried. That'll be forwarded to the city council with your recommendation. The final item of business for your consideration is a application for a conditional use permit submitted by Drew Tolzman. Drew has joined us. Drew is seeking to establish what's normally called mini storage, but your ordinance refers to it as convenience storage, so I may use the two terms interchangeably. I think everybody is familiar with what mini storage is. It is an allowed use within the industrial park as a conditional use permit. The city council owns the property in question, and it is likely we're entering into a purchase agreement with Mr. Tolzman for the sale of the lot. One of the conditions of the sale, to commence the sale and finalize it, would be that Mr. Tolzman obtains a conditional use permit for the operation. We don't want him to purchase property then that is of no use for his future needs. So the first step is tonight, with your review of a conditional use permit application. As you're aware, then your recommendation would then be forwarded to the Board of Zoning Appeals, who would hold a public hearing on the conditional use permit. So the first step tonight would be to make a recommendation to the city council on page 28. Well, first of all, I'll refer to page 26. You can see, if you can see the yellow highlighted, the particular lot in question. Mr. Tolzman, along with the purchase agreement, then is also seeking an option on the abutting lots. So if the operations prove successful, and he may choose then to want to expand that use. On page 27 is the overhead photo. Have the lot that's in question shaded. You can see its relationship to the Solace Apartments, the Vet RX or the swine pharmaceutical operation immediately south of Mason Street, and then south of that would be Creation Technologies. On the corner of Mason and Klein Street, that is the EI Microcircuits manufacturing operations, where they assemble the circuit boards, wire harnesses, and other delicate electronic apparatus. On page 28 is a hand-drawn site plan. It shows the placement of 3 buildings, 2 of them being 40 by 100, the other being 35 by 100. If yours is in color, you can see that the asphalt mat would be 215 feet by 150 feet. That would provide an asphalt mat 25 feet in a circumference around the buildings and the perimeter of the lot. You can see, if you can see the black hatched line, that's the 25-foot setback line. The structures need to be maintained outside of the 25 feet. The ordinance allows parking in commercial or industrial districts to be within 5 feet of the road right away. So it is not any concern, according to your parking regulations in the zoning code, that the pavement would begin approximately 10 feet inside of the sidewalk on Mason Street, the sidewalk comprising the property line, and then it would be 11 feet approximately from a future sidewalk that would be developed on the east of the property as North Sunrise Drive is further developed to support the northern part of the industrial park. The development as proposed covers about 69.9% of the lot with buildings and asphalt. The ordinance allows up to 70. That is why the one building is 35 by 100 rather than 40 by 100. So there had to be some accommodations to meet the maximum lot coverage. Otherwise, it does meet all of the requirements of the ordinance. There will be no water or sewer service provided to the facility. There will be an electrical transformer placed to provide the electrical power, which is essentially light bulbs, both interior and site lighting. The site lighting would be accomplished by wall packs, and they would abide by the city standards of what's called zero cutoff or night sky compliant, meaning the light illumined would be directed down towards the ground and not filtered up into the night sky. At this point, Mr. Tolzman does not anticipate any type of a fence for an enclosure. I will mention that, as you're very well familiar, most of you, that conditional use is considered in light of the 17 standards that are adopted in the ordinance. I've included a copy of them. And as I review them, I'd be remiss to find what I would be considered to be any adverse impact upon the principal permitted uses, which all the other uses are permitted. This would be the only one would be a conditional use. And so I am recommending that you recommend further to the Board of Zoning Appeals that they would provide a conditional use permit without the attachment of any type of a condition. You will see on page 31, there's a photo, and I think everybody probably can close their eyes and envision what a typical mini storage will be. And then there are some artist renderings. And I did include a picture of what would be typical, considered to be a light pack. It may not be that particular model or wattage. The 17 standards then were on page 35 for your consideration. I will note that you and the Board of Zoning Appeals are to consider the conditional use permit and the standards contained wherein. The city council, as the property owner and as they negotiate a purchase agreement, are free to add any conditions that they would wish to that purchase agreement. So for instance, they could, I don't anticipate they would, that say all the doors have to have a cottage style appearance to it. Yeah, so they can do that as a condition of the purchase agreement. So that's outside of the planning and zoning. I'm not anticipating that the council would consider additional conditions, with the exception that if there is fencing established, that if you would have noticed or have noticed the fencing around the water tower and the substation, about every third post is a poured concrete form that has the appearance of, I believe it's limestone rather than fieldstone. All the other uses out there that have fencing have been encouraged or required by purchase agreement to include that. So that may be a requirement. The city has the form, and you pour in the concrete and somehow it's stained and it comes out. And if you drive by and look at that fence, it's pretty convincing from the street. So, but to be consistent with the standards that have been imposed on others, that certainly very well may be a condition that the city council would place upon Drew as part of the purchase agreement. But ladies and gentlemen, it's your duty to consider the conditional use permit. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Drew if he has something to add.
Thanks for having me, guys. Nothing specifically to add, just looking to add self-storage to St. Peter. Everything in St. Peter seems to be 95 to 100% full currently, so I think the city of St. Peter could definitely use some more self-storage.
Thank you.
I was just going to add, I grew up in St. Peter, went to school in Mankato State, and I currently live in Lakeville, Minnesota with my family. Thanks.
Always glad to hear of another Mankato Stater. The old school originals. Thanks, Drew. I'm going to go around and have some discussion here, and if you have questions for myself or for Drew, I'll try to manage the conversation. And I believe this time I start with Member Fickner.
After reviewing it, to me, I've looked at the 17 standards that, to me, it fits all of those, and it, like Drew said, I think it is needed in St. Peter, and it's in a good location, industrial area, so I really have no questions.
Thank you, Scott. Member Rosso.
First of all, I'd like to say hello to Drew. Good to see you again. I like the coloring on the face. Looks great. Looks great. And I also applaud your willingness to do this. I think that'll be, as was mentioned earlier, needed and also a welcome addition. Certainly appears to be attractive. The only question I had, and Drew, if I were you, I'd certainly want that same option, which is literally the option on the adjoining lot. My question is, if you don't utilize that in whenever a potential other buyer would be interested in it, if my understanding is correct, and please correct me if it's wrong, but you would have essentially then the right of first refusal, and if you chose not to do that, it would be available for another purchaser, or is that incorrect?
Perhaps I could answer that, Drew.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, originally, Ken, Drew was going to seek an option on the property immediately north of this corner piece. And the council had that conversation at a workshop, and they seemed to be willing to accommodate that to provide a 12-month option. Subsequent to the council meeting, Drew is alternatively going to seek an option on all of the the three remaining lots in Block 5. So the lot to the north, the lot to the west, and then the lot immediately north of the lot to the west. I'm not too concerned right now, and I expressed that to Drew, is if I have a property owner that is looking at lot 1, I can pretty much almost seamlessly move them over to the next plot on lot 1, which is almost identically sized, and it's identically zoned. You know, the requirements that the city would have in the ordinance are the same. An example, Ken, is EI Micro owns the lot on the corner. They also own the larger lot to the east, and they have an unofficial option on the lot to the south. So if I'm marketing 1.5 acre lots, I'm going to move them off of the one immediately south of EI and put them on one of the other ones that are, again, essentially identical in size and square footage and regulations. But Drew's proposal is to provide him a 12-month option at a price of $500.
Makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Anything to add to that, Drew?
No, I don't believe so. Thank you.
And staff is going to recommend that the council does provide the option on all 3 lots rather than the one that was discussed at the workshop. So, Member DeVos.
So we discussed a lot of this at the council already. I'll just let Drew know that we've kind of switched places. He grew up in St. Peter and lives in Lakeville, and I grew up in Lakeville and now live in St. Peter. So a little bit of a switch up there. But otherwise, I'll be interested to see what the whole purchase agreement looks like at the next city council meeting. But you know, it seems like a good setup, at least at this point, a good addition to the to the property up there. So. That's all I have. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Brad. Member Noel.
I'll just echo what Brad said, and I'm pleased to hear that you're thinking about the other 3 lots as well. I think that would be a great option for you.
Member Davis. I'm having difficulty with your. Yeah, I'm having difficulty with your video, Andy. You're kind of going in and out of focus. I don't know if others are having that same experience.
How about I turn my video off? I may be having slow internet. Does that make my voice clearer?
Yep.
Okay. I have a question. I see a nice diagram of or a nice picture of a light fixture, but I don't see a condition being put on this permit to have a certain kind of light fixture. I'm just confused about that discrepancy, or what are we asking with lighting?
The standards that the city has for the dark sky compliant or zero cutoff is not in the zoning ordinance. So that's, I believe it's in one of the utility ordinances as to site lighting. So that does not need to be one of the conditions. It'll just be imposed by other regulations that the city has outside of the zoning ordinance.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's industry standard anyway. You don't want to be spending money to illuminate the sky when really you're trying to illuminate the site. So. I believe I have to have Member Urban to complete the circle.
I got nothing to add. Everything that was on my mind's been covered at this point. So.
Okay, very good. And I did start with you, Scott, right? Okay. Would Anyone have any further questions, or would anyone be inclined to move the resolution that would recommend that the Board of Zoning Appeals provide a conditional use permit for the establishment of the convenience storage at that particular industrial park site, without the implication or imposition rather of further conditions?
This is Fickner. I do have one question on the resolution.
Certainly.
The second whereas shows it zoned I2. Is that zoned I1 up there?
Yep, yep, I'm sorry. Good catch. Cindy will make the note. It is I1, yes. I2 is the Alumacraft Public Works site.
Right. So if we change that to I1, I would move the resolution.
Thank you, Scott. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Also, I will second.
We have a second by Rosso. Motion and a second to approve the resolution. It's appropriate to have one more opportunity for discussion. I think we can manage it if you just turn your microphone on if you have something to add or ask. Seeing nothing, I will call for the roll call vote, and I will start with Member Rosso.
Aye.
Member DeVos.
Aye.
Member Noel.
Aye.
Member Davis.
Aye.
Member Urban.
Aye.
Member Fickner.
Aye.
Hoop number one, Drew. So City Council, I believe it's on for the 22nd I'm very sorry. I need now to schedule the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. So that it's probably going to be a month, but you're not going to be in construction by that time. So we'll get it done, and as soon as you can, you get everything that signed and get a closing, then start your project pending approval. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for all your help and your communications. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks so much for having me.
Drew, before you leave, totally your call, but just now that you're about to become a property owner in St. Peter, love to have you move back to the area.
I'll keep it in mind.
All right, thanks.
Good to see you guys. Thank you very much for having me.
Ken, does that mean we got to return Brad?
No, there's room for him as well. You got to keep
okay.
Brad too.
So move.
Oh, I think there are a lot of people who would like to send me back, but
I should remember he's a council person. So thanks, Drew. Everybody, you may see Ben Ramp has joined us. Am I pronouncing that right, Ben? Ramp?
That's close enough.
So Ben
I was 5 before I could pronounce it right myself.
Well, it's anticipated that on Monday night, Ben is going to be appointed by the mayor and council to the planning commission. So I offered him the opportunity to log in, one, to get accustomed to go to meeting if he hadn't done that, and then two, just kind of observe a meeting and catch the tone of it. So members Noel and DeVos, Brad on the phone, Ben, they are the city council representatives to the planning commission. Member Davis is the chairperson. I've kind of been administrating the meetings as we've been meeting in a virtual format. And who's the vice chair? We just did it last month.
I am Fickner.
Fickner's the vice chair. So had been Joe, I believe, in the past. So welcome, Ben. Look forward to you joining us. And I see Andy, I believe, did post a link to that document on the League of Minnesota Cities website. Also, I'd encourage you to read the zoning ordinance or maybe scan it. Check out the zoning map and get accustomed to where the different residential, commercial, or industrial zones are. And like I said, maybe you and I should touch base and have a conversation, and I can maybe fill you in on some of the questions that may be raised as you maybe started a little research. But look forward to meeting you and having you join us. So
sounds great. Thanks.
Thank you also for your willingness to serve. That's also very, very important.
Not a problem.
Okay, folks, I usually give just a couple reports. On Monday night, the City Council is going to hold a public hearing on that annexation by ordinance. So that public hearing will be held. We have been successful in the negotiations of the easements required from Ben and Joanna Pell. So the council approved those at their last meeting. We have not reached successful negotiations with the Levon Bonnie Ann's interests. Again, it's been reported to us by her legal counsel that she is having her own appraisal prepared. Ours was 6 to 8 weeks out. So I believe the council is going to undertake the annexation, and then we can continue our negotiations with the Ann's interests. If not, then we'll go to the alternative then, which pending annexation would be the condemnation of the permanent and temporary easements to place the sewer main underground in a manner that would allow the ends then to continue to farm the property. Again, that action is expected on Monday evening. Also, the council is holding a public hearing on then the Baker Gateway Amendment, only requiring the gateway finish on facades facing the Parker Street. It's been a while. You remember you approved that in December, but Mr. Prafty's assistant takes much of the end of December off, and I had to wait for her to get it scheduled and her to put the proper posting on the city council website. So it's not holding up Mr. Baker's project, and I believe we'll also get his lot split by the time he would look to break ground for construction. So Mr. Baker's expressed his appreciation, and I really look forward to that project being undertaken. So any questions of me? We typically have that opportunity also. Mr. Urban.
So I was reading the minutes from last month's meeting that I didn't make. The ENSs only have until February 8th to make that decision on if they're going to accept before you move forward with the annexation, basically.
Yeah, I don't recall the day that the offer was made to the ends, but I believe it was in October at some point.
Okay.
And we did make an offer of the appraised value, which was $32,500. Mr. I almost always say Bell Penn. Mr. Pell did accept an offer of $21,700. That was 140% of the appraised value. Subsequent to that, an amended offer was to be made to Ms. Enns at 140% of the $32,500, which is $45,000 roughly. That's appropriate, and perhaps that will compel her to provide for the easement that's required. That's somewhat of a magic number, the 140%, because if we do proceed with the condemnation, we do need to deposit funds with the court equal to our final offer. So let's imagine, for instance, that our final offer was $32,500. Ms. Enns would not need to consent to the easement, but through the condemnation within approximately 90 days, the city would have possession of the property. We could bid the project, install the sewer and water. No, we'd be in ownership of the easement. We would not take physical ownership or title or deed to the property. We would own the underground easement. And then it would go through the process of determining the final value through the courts. As the courts would determine that final value, if that final value is 120% of what we had offered and deposited with the court could require that we reimburse Ms. Enns for her legal fees. The acquisition expert that we are working with in Minnesota says he has never seen a judge order that at the 20% threshold. If the final determination by the court is 140% of what the city had offered and deposited, then the city must pay the legal fees. And so it's very unlikely, and of course all the other attorneys know that when you make the offer of the easement, you're going to settle for the appraised value, knowing that you do want some cushion. So if we offered 120%, then it would have to come in at what, nearly 50% to meet that 40% more threshold. So we're comfortable with the appraisal. The comps were predominantly from the Mankato and even Belle Plaine area. There weren't any real nice local comps. And I would expect as she would have her appraisal completed, they would use likely perhaps even very similar comp properties. it is possible that they will not present us with the results of their appraisal. If that happens, we assume the appraisal came in perhaps equal or less than what we had appraised for. So it's a chess match and it's negotiations, and they're being undertaken by a third party that we've brought into it, that we've used on a couple other occasions, namely when we acquired the easement for the future roundabout at St. Julie and Old Minnesota.
So she just basically feels that the property is worth more than what is being offered, is what it comes down to.
Yes, and there just is not an appreciation perhaps for the city, and a longer history that certainly precedes my involvement, or the current staff's involvement.
Okay.
So yeah, we've tried to work, and that's really one of the reasons we did bring in a third party. So someone that does not have that history.
Sure.
So,
Gotcha. Can I ask 2 other questions then?
yeah.
If we're done on that one. The building going on next to Anytime Fitness, is that a continuation of their project?
That's going to be some leased space that they'll be leasing.
Okay, just curious. And then AT&T closed. They just didn't make business here do well for them, or?
Never really had a lot of communications with those big firms like that. Yeah, I actually found out when I was notified by the property owner. So it's a tough market. Mankato here, you got other competitors in the area. So we've seen them come and go. I believe AT&T was in town, or one of the other ones. I don't know what's there now. I think it's Paul Tanis's building, one of Paul Tanis's building there. And then it was a record shop after that. And so they come and they go. They pop into town and pop out. And again, they're large, typically national firms that are operated by managers, and so they don't typically join the chamber and a couple other things that a more locally positioned business or with more of a local ownership would do. So.
Sure. I was just curious. I thought they were empty as well. So.
Yep, that property had just changed hands too. So it went from Growth Holdings, and it's now owned by 12 Min Properties, I think it is, or 12 Properties Min. So the council did consent to an assignment of the development agreement and tax increment plan. So, other questions? Excuse me, hearing none, I would ask, is there a motion to adjourn?
I would move that we adjourn. This is Davis.
And a second?
Urban will second.
We have a second by Urban. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. We'll intend to assemble the first, I bet it's the 4th of March. So, but we'll plan on meeting then if we have business to attend, which I'd anticipate we'll have something. If not, I'll try to give you a little bit of heads up notice that perhaps it would be appropriate for us to take a month off. So welcome again, Ben. Glad you're going to join us. Call me with any questions. More than happy to help out. I know that it's a lot to pick up, but I know that the other members have been pretty quick on the uptake. So, and then I'll try to guide you through the process with questions and make sure, as I told Ken the other day, that you have the resources that you folks need to do the best job that you can and make the best decisions. So,
Sounds good. Thank you.
everybody, you have a wonderful evening.
Good night, everyone.